Robin is seated, and so are we. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Survivor New York Bannerman Island Exit Interview podcast here on Silent Podcast, where we are anything but silent. We are extremely loud, incredibly close, blah, blah, blah. I am so excited today that we are bringing you this wonderful podcast. Joining me, as always, the host with the most. It's Chris Lord. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. I'm loud. I'm proud. I'm excited to be here. Another good
Well,
show.
I know it's going to be a fantastic show because we have the one and only Julia here with us. Indecisive bitch, Julia. Julia, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm really looking forward to this interview, though I will be honest, I am a bit nervous. I think you guys are going to hold my feet to the fire. So,
We are nothing
No,
but
we
loving and
won't.
kind.
We are Julia Stans in this
oh,
group.
thank you.
It's
My
very,
gosh.
very true. Which, me being a Julia stan leads me to my first question to you, Julia. I know this a little bit, but how did you find out about Survivor New York and want to apply?
I think we were playing minis together, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you had just posted on Twitter that you were recruiting, and then maybe a lot of people were like, "Oh, like Naomi's like really looking for like women of color, like you should apply." And so, yeah. Oh, thank you. Hey, Robin. I don't know. This was like so long ago. This is literally 2 years ago.
It
Um,
is crazy in that regard. Yeah, we played a game called Monarch together where you very kindly voted for me to win. Uh, I this is so I don't remember a lot of those nights because we were just up until like 4 in the morning for no reason. But what I remember is you asked me a question about your vote out, and I was like, I didn't vote you out, Julia, which is true. You're the one person where I was like, oh, I want Julia to stay, and they took you out viciously, and you're like, oh, okay. And then I won. It was great. But
I voted for you to win. Yeah.
it was like such a pleasure to meet you and spend time with you via that community. And when you did apply, I was like, this is like a home run, like immediately.
Aw.
I knew that I wanted you to play from the very beginning. And I think Chris knew that too
Yeah,
once he got
for
started.
sure. One of our absolute favorites.
Wait,
Hi, Reynolds.
sorry. Wow,
You
people
have
are
so many fans, Julia. It's like really hard to keep up with all the comments, all the love. I mean, what do you have to say to your fans out there? Because there's a lot.
thank you guys for supporting me through thick and thin. And I mean, I think Robin put this in their like YouTube comment, but like, sorry for disappointing you all.
I think they would literally all tell you that you didn't disappoint them. I think you excited them and entertained them for a long time in this game. Every week, something to entertain them, I feel like.
Yeah, that's for sure. Julia, how does it feel watching it all back? Because I feel like this was a very chaotic weekend. I think it was a lot of no sleep, a lot of rushing towards the end. Um, how do you feel getting to see it all back on our YouTube screen?
Yeah, I mean, I can be totally honest. I think when I first watched it, I kind of just like recoiled and was like hanging my head in embarrassment and just being like, "Oh my god!" And I literally brought myself back to 18 months ago, where it's like, "Oh my god, if I only did this, if I only did that, if I only did this," and I was like practicing like speeches I could have made or told to Kristen like in the shower, and then I was like, "Wait, this happened 18 months ago. Like, why am I still into it?" So definitely rewatching it was like. Um, I would say it's not the easiest thing to watch, especially when you know just something big is happening. And I'm actually really grateful. Like I don't think I've gotten any like hate in the comments about people were just like, yeah, Julia like lost the game in that moment. And I like liked the comments, like, yep, I did. I think I had a lot of momentum going. And I think just in that one moment, um thank you once again. I think just in that one moment, I literally just like lost all the trust of like almost all of my allies, right? Like some people like Annie and Stan still stuck with me, but Veronica, Sharif told. I felt like I made it very clear that I was the one vote on Danny, which is obviously Danny's gonna use his I don't know if I army, but like Sharif told Veronica that I voted for Veronica, which didn't make any sense. So I definitely feel like I had the game in my hands, but because I was working with so many people, so many names that came up, I didn't want to do, right?
Mm.
And so, it was not easy to watch. I'll be honest.
Let's roll it back a little bit though. So you get cast, you make the trek over here. Can you talk about like the very like beginning of the game for you, like night zero, and then maybe like the first few rounds before the swap?
Yeah. I love the Night Zero One World. I felt like it really gave me a chance to just get to know other people in my tribe. And I actually do remember being in a group talking to like Veronica and Jeremy, and Veronica was like a teacher, and Jeremy was like an IP lawyer, copyright lawyer for sports in New York. I also definitely remember having a connection with Ed, with Sharif, with Andy. Like Sharif spent a ton of time in DC. He went to college here. Andy, I felt like I had a really good connection with him. He's just a really affable person. I think it was just So I think those people were actually like, if we're on the same tribe or if we make the merge or if we're to swap, like I wanted to work with those people, and we'll see how like my relationship with all those people change. And I think it's funny. I think a lot of people were like, oh, Julia always wanted like Veronica or Jeremy out. I think my relationship with everyone was constantly changing. And I think I constantly thought of my relationship with people as really fluid, but because of that, because I was constantly changing my relationship with other people, people felt like maybe I was really hard to pin down, right? Because they didn't know where my head was at. And then and then when we first get the tribe, and then we just like completely lose the challenge, like none of us can balance. I honestly thought our like morale would be pretty low, but I think Iona, like we won the most challenges in the pre-merge. And yeah, I'll stop there.
I remember that night zero challenge. It was definitely a flop. I was definitely worried for you guys. I thought we had kind of set you up for failure in that moment.
Right.
I'm curious how it felt to be put on a tribe with Stan, because Stan was very difficult to place on a tribe, because I wanted to separate you and Robin. I thought you'd be
because we played together before.
Yes,
we played together before, and Robin did let me like. Robin saved themselves in order, and then therefore I had to be eliminated.
Yes, which we didn't know anything about Penthouse.
It hadn't because we couldn't tell anyone we had played together. But we knew,
which is so funny, because like I'm asking is like mostly as a precaution of like, hey, if you've played something or you're gonna play something, I just like to know. And I was really gagged by that. Everyone kept their mouths damn shut about that.
Well, we had to sign a NDA for the Penthouse.
And like, look at what Penthouse is now.
Right. It was like very serious.
I know.
I remember you telling me about the NDA, and I was like, oh my gosh, what did Julia play? I was so excited. I was thinking it was something like on real TV or something, because I didn't figure any live reality game was going to make you sign an NDA. But I remember you sitting in my living room telling us all about, I can't tell you guys anything. It's something very special, which it was, but I thought it was like a Netflix reality show.
At the time, like Penthouse at its peak had maybe had like 40K views. Like I always thought of it as like the second biggest show after Sequester, but then obviously season 4 didn't get like fully delivered, and I don't think a lot of people even know how the show ended. So
it's true. Frankly, I don't even know how the show ended. And like we've had people from the Penthouse come on to like the next season, to season 6 of Survivor New York, and I completely forgot that they were on the Penthouse, because I like just
who was on the Penthouse?
John.
Oh, okay. He's on everything, but
wait, are we allowed to publicly talk about?
Well, I've posted the cast of season 6.
Oh, we have. Okay, John who?
John V.
Yes. Oh my God, yes.
Spoilers.
You have the best reactions to everything. Julia, we love your reactions. Your laugh is so iconic. I feel like you can literally, I'm editing some final tribal council things, and like there's not a lot of jury shots, but there's a lot of laughter shots, and your laugh is always like the one everyone could recognize right away, and it's the loudest, and it's so when you laugh, everyone laughs. I
I'm
feel
still
like.
remembering where like Danny was like showing like getting all like showing his pockets and being like
Yeah.
kind of idol, and I was
Off. Yeah.
laughing, and maybe someone could have interpreted that I was laughing at Danny, but then apparently Robin was saying like, Danny, open up your pants or something, and that's why I cackled so hard.
Oh.
Yeah, I think people were basically heckling Danny while he was trying to with pockets. Got me
I,
too.
I want to roll back to like the beginning again. I feel like when you edit these things, you're not sure like what type of player, everyone is going to be. But I think once I saw that confessional of you like on the picnic table, talking about everybody, saying how you don't like game bots, like I was like, wow, Julia is like a game player, and you were playing, I feel like strategically very early and very hard. And I totally agree with your logic about how these people need to get to know you because that's smart. When you play these live reality games, you should get to know every player. So talk to me about that like early dislike or maybe just like relationship with Veronica and Jeremy that you had the first two, I guess, two rounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely wanted to do the thing where it was like I was playing in a certain way with my tribe, and then I was like giving my real thoughts in confessionals. And I think even the people I was playing with were really, I think most people were surprised by my confessionals. They had no idea I was, I don't know, having very complex or mixed feelings about them. And so I think initially it was Veronica and Jeremy were definitely the power couple of the tribe. And I think the main reason why I was like, oh, they're game boss, they're strategizing, was because so here's the thing. There's a confessional, I think, where essentially Jeremy implies that like I'm kind of on the bottom, right? And so I get the sense that it's Jeremy, Veronica, and Stan, and then there's like there's Andrew who's kind of off to the side, and there's Annie who, at the initial impressions, everyone is like Annie's going to be the one to go home. Oh my god, that's a big bird. And so I just felt like there was a clear majority alliance, and then 3 people who hadn't like made any deals. So I felt like I was really in the bottom. So then when I found the idol, you can literally hear as soon as I find the idol, Veronica's in the background saying, if you found the idol, like you should talk about it. And there was a thought in my head, like maybe she saw that I found it. So that's why she's saying it. But really, I think she was just like, trying to.
Yeah, she was just saying.
Yeah, she was just saying it. But my initial, I wasn't indecisive about that. And I just kind of like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to tell everyone I have the idol. So I'm no longer in the bottom. So I think because I told people in the idol, all of a sudden Jeremy sees me as an asset. And he's like, wow, Julia has the idol. I'm going to decide it's a tribe idol. And now Julia's in with me, Veronica, and Stan. And so, even though like all of these Survivor podcasts are like, why is everyone telling everyone about their advantages? Sometimes you have to in order to change your position. So I have no regrets. I actually have no regrets about telling everyone about my idol because I think I could have been like the first one voted out if I wasn't seen as an asset. But I think where there was a lot of tension was I think both Jeremy and Veronica just love to run through scenarios of like, oh, if we're in a swap or if we're in a blah, 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 like, Julia, you're going to hand off your idol to this. You're going to hand off your idol to like the swap tribe that has less purple. And it was more of like commanding me on what to do with my idol rather than being like, Julia, what do you want to do? Right. And so I think that's where there was a lot of tension, but we can get into like, I truly think like I built a really strong foundation of relationship with Veronica when we get the swap and when it gets to merge, like even like you hear Veronica saying like Julia's my girl from like day 1 or day 0, right? Because like even though Andrew and I were really, really close and I did not want to vote him out, I had to vote with the number. So everyone I was continuing to move forward would continue to see me as someone who's going to play with them.
Yeah, and Stan leaves a comment which is, you were never on the bottom in my eyes, and Iona. And I think while this is true, Stan, Julia's position is definitely increased by finding the idol and announcing it to everybody, and I think Jeremy basically confirms that in the episode. And I think that you're not on the bottom, but you're like in the bottom half, which
Right.
like you are not in an advantageous position should your
Right.
tribe lose 3 immunity challenges. Like, and I think the idol share in that moment is very important because it creates this bond around you of everybody. But God, I loved watching everybody say what they were gonna do with your idol. It was so funny to me. Like I can't the Iona stuff in retrospect, especially where we are now, and knowing how it all ends up, where like Jeremy's kind of like Jeremy wants it played on him when he goes home, and eventually Iona's just this like sort of cacophonous split. Um, I just love sort of the parallels of where it started and where it ended.
Yeah, and I also like it's funny hearing that like Kristen found the idol, she didn't share it with anyone. People looked through her bag, and that her tribe looked for 2 hours because I'm pretty sure I found the idol within like 5
You
minutes.
found it so
And so
quickly.
because I found it so quickly, I think a part of the reason, first of all, we won all those pre-tribal challenges because like Stan is amazing at challenges in both the physical aspect and the mental aspect. Like that cube one with the
Mhm.
4-sided, like that's something you have to know the hack. So number one, like we won because Stan is incredible at tribal challenges. Two, I think we won because we were really unified. And I
Mhm.
think that unity was really important. And so like I was okay with people talking about like what they were gonna do to my tribe as long as it kept everyone unified. But like internally, I'm not gonna like say to her face, "Hey, it's not gonna be a tribe idol," because that's when you start to have this sort of disunity, and that's when you're not able to perform in challenges well together.
Well, that's also there's this moment, Chris. Do you remember we talked about it a long time ago where um you, Andrew, and Stan are talking, and Stan, I think, does something very smart, which is where he says, like, listen, we don't, whatever they're saying, we're just agreeing with it, but it's actually us.
Right.
I'm wondering how much value you held in the you, Andrew, Stan alliance, knowing that eventually Andrew has to get voted out.
Oh, so that me, Andrew, Stan alliance was definitely like my main priority.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem was like I just kind of wish because I think Ed has said like he would have either wanted to steal Stan or me. I just kind of or Annie maybe. I don't know. If they had not stolen Stan and stole someone else, I think we could have kept Andrew in the game because I think Stan would have had the gumption to push back and be like, "This is the direction I wanted to go in." But yeah, no, definitely they were my closest, and then because of the swap, I had to be really adaptive on who I could work with. And I worked with, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but I worked with Veronica and Annie on 3 votes together. Like that kind
Mm-hmm.
of trust is forged. And, sometimes it's unbreakable, but like, I'm still really grateful that like Annie stuck by my side when I did get voted out.
I want to roll back to Andrew's tribal council a little bit,
Mhm.
just because it's the first time I feel like you could have made a huge move if you wanted to. I mean, I know it's your idol, but you
It's
could
your
have
idol,
used
Julia.
it.
It's not for us. It's not for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about so many different scenarios that you could have used it, but that's just me, in my survivor mind. But it's like I feel like you could have. I mean, tell me if it maybe crossed your mind. You could have said, "Hey, I'm gonna idol Andrew regardless, or I'm gonna use it on myself," or and told that to Annie or Jeremy or Veronica and said, "We need to vote this way instead," or used it in sort of this like tool to get the way that you wanted the outcome to be. Because obviously, I don't remember if I edited in there, but you do get really emotional when you give your confessional, and I think you cry, and then you cry again at the voting booth. So obviously, Andrew really did mean a lot to you in your game. So I feel like maybe if you had threatened people, they might have said, "Yeah, I'll do what you want, Julia, because I don't want to hear the wrath of your idol." You know.
Yeah.
So did you think about like possibly doing that, or just you kind of just gave up because the majority was going that way?
Yeah. By the way, I'm not texting my phone. I'm just writing down what you said. Yeah, I wish I could have played an Australian Survivor Haley game where you have the idol. I am so sorry for the burps. Where you have the idol, you tell people how you're going to use the idol and craft in a certain way. And then once the vote has been shaped that way, you don't end up using your idol. And for some reason, Haley was able to do that like several times. And people are just like, how does she get away with this? Right. She never ends up using her idol. So I do think that's one. So I would say one thing I would have absolutely not done is use the idol on Andrew and not tell anyone I was going to do it, because then I'm pissing off Annie, Jeremy, and Veronica. And then I have no idea where the swap's going to happen, right? And so say I end up on a swap, and I did with the Veronica and Annie, and then they're like, I could have been Kayla, right? Where they're like, oh, like Julia didn't vote with us, and so therefore, like, let's just get Julia out because like she also has an idol, right? So for me, it was really important because I was thinking about how do I make sure people trust me and people work with me in a swap and in a merge. Oh,
Wow, Edsel says Julia for second chance. I don't think we've had an Edsel comment before. This is very rare.
Really? Wow, thank you.
Find it.
So I definitely would not have played the idol on Andrew without letting people know. I think the idea of you brought up being like, hey, I have an idol, and like I'm gonna use it on Andrew or me. So like, can we talk about something else? I think that could have been an interesting idea. I just think at that time, I had a secure position, but I did not have like the social capital. I think again, the social capital and the power lied between Jeremy and Veronica. And another thing of when I play in the games is when you're in the when you are in your pre-swap or pre-merge, you never want to be the person known as a person in charge, because then you become a target. So when we come to the merge, I'm still playing under the radar and everyone sees Veronica as a target, even though I'm the one with the idol. And so I also, like, I purely believe you should have influence and know where the votes are going in the pre-swap and pre-merge, but you should never be the one making the shots, because there are going to be people who are in the flanks who know that you're the one who's made the shots, and then they want to come after you. And so I was just not, I don't think I was in a position. I think if I were to pull such a big move like that, all of a sudden, like their eyes are going to be at me, and then they're going to realize that I'm a craftier or bigger player really early on. And I really wanted to and that's what I think is shown in the episodes, where I think I'm very different when talking with people, and then you see my crazy ideas in the confessionals. I did not want to show people that I was a schemer.
Yeah. Which
and
is,
I think something like showing your idol out for Andrew, who I don't think had a social capital. All of a sudden, the attention would have been on me, and I was not in it for the short-term game. I was in it for the long-term game, and I also felt like I could still have a relationship with Annie and Veronica and Jeremy. Even though I complain about them, I still was able to actually have relationships with all of them.
That's the most fascinating thing for me, is like the relationship, the way you talk about Veronica and the way it like literally flips on its head and she becomes like your closest ally. It's like this interesting thing that I feel like really only happens in like Survivor, where like you kind of find comfort in like your original tribe because you're in a tough situation, which you're in. But on the flip side, the very next vote that you get into is the Kayla vote, and I have to say, you were the deciding factor in that. That was all you, 100%. Veronica was pushing one way, Annie was thinking a different way. All the blues were all over the place, but because of your direction and your fight, you saved Edsel. Edsel was most likely going to go home. So my question is, how do you go from taking the back seat to the very next round, like driving the car? So
I could have only driven the car because of the trust that I had built with Veronica and Annie and voting with them the first time. If I pulled my move with Andrew and, didn't loop in Veronica and Annie, I could have been in the Kayla position. I sincerely believe that. And so I feel like also, maybe there is, I'm not Brandon from season 44 where I'm going to use the idol in the pre-merge. I do think it was like a little too early. And so I kind of saw it as, I use idol on Andrew. I have two allies, which is Andrew and Stan, or I sacrifice Andrew and I gain 3 people who are also all bigger targets than me in different ways, right? I think Andrew is someone that I don't know would have been a big target versus like Annie is a big target because she's a decoy vote. Veronica's also a big target, and Jeremy. Like they're just all. I was like, I gained 3 allies who are all big targets and semi shields for me.
I agree with that for sure. So after your big move with the Kayla vote, you guys lose again, and now
I just want to like for. I know we just kind of touched on it, but like Kayla specifically, I think in the episode, Julia, you say like you don't think that Kayla's giving you a lot of information.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious from your perspective. So like let's say that you could dictate every single elimination from that tribe, right? Kayla wasn't giving you a lot of information. Kayla goes. Who else would have gone if you could like drive the bus the whole time? Would it have been the same boot order McKenna and then Edsel, or would it have been a little bit different?
Oh, you mean
on the swap tribe?
Well, I'm a little confused by the question because I think I did drive all.
Oh, you think I think maybe
I think for McKenna,
Naomi, you doubted Julia?
No, I'm remembering now that Edsel was definitely your move.
Yeah, the McKenna. So the McKenna. I guess we can do all the swap votes and then we can go back and do the details. So the Kayla vote was definitely Stan before he got stolen. He said, "Save the boys." So for me, my ideal going to the merge was Veronica and Annie and Stan and Sharif. Those were the people I wanted. And those were the people that I got until we lost again because we just did not have, like literally the other tribe was stacked physically and also mentally because you have Dr. Stan who has like a, I don't know, 188 IQ and photographic memory.
We don't have to be that nice to Stan.
I feel like we should blame Stan for that. If he really cared about the 5 of you, he would have threw the challenge. They had the majority on their side. They could have voted Jeremy out. Jeremy was nobody he cared about in the game. Why did he not throw the challenge and use other people to do that?
I'm pretty sure I told. You're right. I'm pretty sure maybe Ed and Sharif have a better memory. I'm pretty sure I told Ed and Sharif we have to tell him to throw the challenge. And I don't know if we actually executed on that. I don't know if because I think Ed and Sharif were the ones who were throwing the balls. I don't know if they actually told Stan. Maybe Stan was just like, no, I can't do that, or I'm not in a position to. I do remember thinking, this is the 5 that I want to go into the merge. And so Stan needs to I don't know, cut some fat on his side. Yes, you're totally right. But I think some of those were whispers and not in front of cameras. So I apologize for that.
Oh, that's okay. Oh yeah. Stan says, Julia asked me to throw the challenge at the end.
Yes, Stan!
Yeah, but Stan, you could have jumped in there. Stan, you could have took Danny's place or Andy's place and just fumbled it on purpose. I mean, without telling anybody. And you could have did your classic Stan, like, oh, I just sucked or whatever. And everyone would have laughed and then it would have been fine.
Yes. Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
So I definitely agree. Like, you drove every vote on that tribe. So we get to the McKenna vote, and it seems like very clear cut. You know, she has a large majority on the other tribe. Was there any other idea in your head, or it just always was McKenna for that vote?
Or was there a way for McKenna to save herself that she didn't?
That's a great way that I wanted to put. Yes.
So my memory of the McKenna vote was as soon as we lose the challenge, Veronica immediately turns to me and Annie, I think, and being like, McKenna's out. And so I was like, oh, good, because that's the outcome I wanted because I needed to keep my purples and my blues, right? So I didn't really feel like I had to persuade anyone. I felt like it was pretty clear cut. That was McKenna. I think in order for McKenna to have stayed, I remember Ed trying to really pull information on McKenna. Because obviously, first of all, my opinion is I think the 2 people most likely to win the game who, if they made it to end, were McKenna and Andy. They are just I
think that's 1,000% correct.
Absolutely most likable people in the cast, super adept. And so I was and so I think in the back of everyone's mind is if not now, when, right? If you let McKenna get to the merge, McKenna is just gonna end up winning. So I mean, I feel terrible that they had to cut off like a really good player's legs so early in the game, but it was just very clear that McKenna was just a huge social threat. Because she was able to save, because in the Kayla vote, I was like, do I do Kayla or McKenna? And I felt like McKenna was a little bit more open versus Kayla was like a lot more cagier with information. And so I think anything McKenna could have done differently, I think maybe
Here's my thought. If McKenna mentioned her relationship with Robin, would that have had any factor? Because I think what we had talked about with McKenna was like lying about saying either, oh, I'm only close to Robin, or I'm on the bottom and it's me and Robin versus the rest of them, whatever. Do you think a relationship with Robin would have impacted that at all?
No, I don't think so. I think for me, whenever I'm like, oh, we're gonna keep in this screen, and how are they gonna help us with the merge? I'm always thinking, who else can they bring in? And me and Stan already had Robin, so McKenna having Robin is just duplicative. So I think McKenna would have had to say like, I am really close with Danny and Kristen, and I can bring them in, and it can be like, I don't know, green and purple or something. I think it would have had to be like, from my perspective, I feel like McKenna would have I don't know, like maybe she would have to show maybe more strategic and like just tell me what a future plan of how we could work together is. But then maybe I would have also been like, oh, you're thinking like that.
Yeah, that's oh no, you're too smart.
I do think McKenna was a little bit swap screwed.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't know. I really don't know what she could have done. She did great.
What about the next one? So
also
the next vote.
No, okay, you're good. Your video was like frozen for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's talk about the next vote, because the next vote I feel like is interesting because you give one of like the best confessionals of this season, I think, where you're like, I think I'm gonna flip the vote right here. Like it just comes out of nowhere, right before we go to tribal council, you do this confessional, and I find that confessional like very last second. I'm like, holy shit, this is a great confessional to like add into this, and it really does set this up that you could flip the vote right here. You don't even have to tell anybody. You could just vote for Veronica because you know that that's where the boys are going, what the girls are doing, and you knew that Jeremy probably is just going to vote for one of the two boys. So you had the power in your hand if you wanted to do that. So why did you choose not to do that?
Yeah, I think when I saw that confessional, I was like, I said that? I did not remember that, because I felt like for me, the decision was between Ed and Sharif. And there's that point where Sharif says, I'm not about the big boys. I'm not going to work with the big boys. And I knew that like Ed was like honestly heads over heels in love with Stan. Like Ed was just like, oh my God, like Stan is like the coolest person ever. And I'm like, oh, like, I mean, like Stan is someone that I was just holding at, like, obviously we work really closely together. But I was just like, I just felt like Stan was going to be way more loyal. Sorry, I felt like Ed was going to be way more loyal to Stan than to me. And I felt like Sharif, either he was telling me what I wanted to hear, or I think maybe he could have genuinely meant he didn't want to work with the big boys. But then when he got to the merge, he realized that there was there's a lot of validity in like working with big threats and protecting each other, right? But so the reason why in my memory, and I can get to the Veronica thing, but in my memory, it was Sharif explicitly told me he's not going to work with the big boys, and I didn't really know that he had a relationship with Stan, versus Ed was very clear that he really admired Stan. And so I was like, I'm thinking about the numbers and stuff. This is the vote before the jury. Like, that means jury votes matter here. So like, okay, like if I'm gonna go with Stan to the final three, like what matters, right? And so it's like, Ed's definitely gonna vote for Stan, and Sharif could maybe not vote for Stan. So really it was a jury vote consideration. But in terms of the Veronica thing, again, I was really surprised I said that. I think the reason why I said that was the plan that Ed and Sharif brought to me, right? They were like, we're going to do Veronica. And so I think I was just stating like, I'm in the middle here. Yeah, I was in the middle here. I know that the girls are doing. Also, by the way, I feel like because Kayla had thrown Ed's name out a few rounds ago, that's why his name came out again. And I felt like Veronica. Sorry,
That's 3 burps.
No, I love it.
I'm counting that now.
sorry, I'm drinking. I'm sorry, I'm drinking.
Or is it a seltzer?
It's a seltzer. I didn't realize seltzer can make me burp this much.
Yes, of course, carbonation.
But Veronica and Annie, I think, landed on Ed pretty quickly because I think Sharif was able to. I think Sharif and Veronica had a really close relationship.
Yeah,
and I think Sharif. Yeah, so I think Sharif was able to make the girls feel comfortable, and I think because Kayla had spread that Ed is like sneaky. And I remember when Kayla said, "I was like, really? Like, is my night zero assessment incorrect? Like, what about Ed is sneaky? He just seems like the most friendly, warm, like a loyal, good ally." And so because his name was already out there, that's why they landed on Ed. And Sharif and Ed wanted to do Veronica, obviously, because Veronica is like a huge competition threat. And so I was like, these are the options I have presented. These are the options I have presented in front of me. It's either do Ed or flip Veronica. But ultimately, okay, one, I made the decision to do Ed because the tribal was already like a funeral for Ed. Like it was already treated like Ed's the one to go home. So then for me to like flip it on Veronica, it like, I don't know, it would have like ruined the moment. It already seemed like it was already a done deal. And also like Veronica and Annie literally tell Ed he's the one going home.
Oh, so it's so good.
Flip, it would just like piss so many people off, right? Because Ed already thinks he's going home.
Something I wanted to mention that you had just touched upon is Sharif in this moment, because I think it's super important to look at Sharif's relationship to you guys, to you, Annie, and Veronica, and how it affects down the line. Because he talks about it. He is trying to keep you safe, but he's not always operating with your best interests in mind. So he'll get Jeremy out instead of Veronica, but it doesn't really matter that Jeremy is somebody that you guys are close with. And I think it's really, if someone is maybe inspired to like watch the season back, I think the Sharif Veronica Julia connection is very fun, but also kind of tragic in a way, because he's almost like your downfall. Like he says, I'll be with you guys. I'll be with you guys.
Yeah.
And then immediately is like, but also these guys seem pretty cool too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think there is a world where if it was Ed and not Sharif, Ed definitely would not have played with the big boys. He would have been loyal to Stan to a fault, but he definitely would not have played with Danny.
I think he would have been a lot more loyal to you, especially.
Yes.
More so than Sharif.
I don't know about that. I'm not sure about that. I mean, Ed and I talked about this. I was his number 4, but maybe he was my number 4 as well. Right? Because wait, what's that reaction, Chris?
I didn't know. I thought you guys were closer than number 4.
Well, no, because he has Sharif. It would have been Brienne.
Yeah.
Like, let's say Sharif's still in the game or something. Brienne, Sharif, Stan, me.
Yeah.
And in my head, it was like Annie, Veronica, Stan, Robin, Ed. Right?
Yeah, it's like it's not a perfect sort of like our priorities are each other and only each other kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think sure. I mean, Sharif's a really fascinating player to watch because Sharif is I mean, I think similarly where it's like Sharif's the one who like Stan's the one who's like, oh, Robin is the one spilling the plan, but Sharif's the one who spearheads that, right? And obviously, that's not what's best for my game or Stan's game. So, but I feel like we've jumped ahead a lot.
No, I think we're good.
You're at Ed and Sharif.
Stan says that Ed might have said to Julia, Robin, me.
I agree with that statement.
But I did not know the big boys existed. And another thing I want to point out is me going into the merge. The only new connection I have is Sharif. Anybody on that other swap tribe of 7, the only connections they don't have are to the 3 purple girls and Sharif. So I feel like, again, I'm someone, I think there's like a point, I forget which vote it was, but like, I'm just like, we just need more time to get to know each other and form relationships. And you can just see me being like this. Like, I just felt like I haven't gotten to know anyone because because we were winning, because Iona was winning so much, we had time to like talk about our relationships and our hopes and our dreams. And we probably like bonded for 1 or 2 hours and then go straight to the merch. And the only thing we have to strategize that like, I do form a bit of a connection with Kristen, but like Danny and I like maybe had like 2 conversations. And I do think if this sounds weird, but I do think if like Danny and I were on an island for 3 days, we would have been able to like my way of playing with people is I need to form a relationship with you before we can start playing, right? Versus some people that I've called game bots where it's like, we're all the same color buff, so this is why we're going to play together, you know?
Yeah.
And so I feel like people on the other swap tribe just got more time to get to know the other people versus the only new person I have a connection with is Sharif. And I had a previous connection with Robin, but I didn't get to know Danny or Kristen. And then Andy and I did have like a secret alliance.
Yeah, a bond, but it didn't. You didn't.
It didn't work out for like so many reasons.
I think that moment that you mentioned, the saying like you were talking to Annie, you say we just need more time to connect with people. I think is right after the Jeremy vote out, if I'm not mistaken, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, probably.
And I think we're 1,000% right. Is that you needed that overnight time to bond with people and have conversations because, and it's talked a lot about in this like midsection post merge, where the people of smaller stature, aka the reverse big boys, want to do something and want to form an alliance. And I think it really starts because the overnight exists for you to talk to Kristen, for Annie to talk to people, that allows something to be said, although nothing, like 1 or 2 moves to be done, but it never really reaches like the ultimate utopia.
I wonder if like,
hi Parker, by the way, just quick.
Oh my god, what? Oh no.
Julia is a big Parker fan.
Hi, Parker. Wow, I did not realize he was watching.
Didn't Parker play in Real Foot too?
He's the producer.
Parker's a Real Foot legend. Come on now.
Yeah. Wasn't he in the season you were just talking about though?
The Lost season, season 3? Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Lost season off camera.
Yeah, because my friend played, well, a few of my friends played season 3 and they told me a lot of things about it. But anyway.
We all know a lot of things about season 3 including Stan.
I think Veronica, she always had this plan of girls, Robin, and Sharif. And I just feel like also Stan and Danny had a pre-existing relationship. They played Survivor Brooklyn South together or something before, and I did not know about that.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't really play together. They have a friend named Jamie that they're both like infatuated with, and that is like their connecting factor. And they bring it up so many times in the game. And I have to edit it out over and over because Danny brought Jamie to Survivor Brooklyn South, and Stan played on Jamie's tribe, and Stan would use this sort of terminology to Danny, like, I didn't fuck over Jamie, so that's how you know I'm gonna be true to you, Danny, because I didn't screw Jamie over. And Danny would take that. Danny would take that and be like, yeah, I know I could trust Stan because he didn't screw over Jamie. And I'd have to edit that out probably 10 times throughout the season.
Funny. If you got that in the show, the comments would be like, who the fuck is Jamie? Is Jamie like this?
Yeah, it's another Caitlyn. It's another like who? Like
That's so funny. Yeah, so Stan and Danny already had a pre-existing relationship. And I just feel like if we had like a little bit more time to bond, if we didn't have that, because I think that hurricane accelerated the timeline. You know, if we didn't have the hurricane, maybe we would have had like 20 or 30 minutes to strategize. But I feel like the girls couldn't get together because we just had never worked together on the vote, and then we kept just working with people we had already worked with. And so I do think it would have been great. And hopefully, you know, maybe something will happen in the future, but I think it would have been great if it did happen. But also Veronica wanted Stan out, and I was like, it's too early to get Stan out. So
I want to ask about when Ed gets voted out, probably the most iconic photo of the season is you and your shocked look. What were you thinking in that moment?
So what I was thinking was like, this is where it's just like, I have a complicated relationship with everyone. I love Ed to death. I was so happy that Ed got this opportunity to be a juror, but also, holy fuck, I just voted him out for the wrong reason. Because if I knew he was going to be a juror no matter what, maybe I could have gotten Sharif out because maybe, I don't know. So it was definitely like, holy shit, I'm so excited for him. And also like everything the reason why I voted him out, like didn't work. Right.
Yeah, let's see that moment again. Here we go.
I'm like even looking directly at the camera.
I know, Julia. Can I tell you, I've been waiting so long for people to see that episode because it's my favorite clip of the whole season. The finale is so good, but it's my favorite clip because your face is so fucking funny, but also because like I love the way that it's like you described. It's a funeral for Edsel, and then turns out Edsel's not dead. Like it's a great, like,
yeah,
such a great like twist in the whole thing.
yeah.
We just need to make Julie keep laughing.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
Stan says, "Love me some Jamie. I bet you he didn't watch the season at all." Can I tell you, Stan? I don't think Jamie recognized me the second time I saw him. So that's how I feel about Jamie. Someone remind Jamie that
Didn't Jamie apply for Survivor New York and we didn't cast him? I think that did happen, actually.
I don't remember.
Yes,
maybe if you remembered me, we would have cast him.
Actually, it was season 5. I remember now that I think about it. And because we casted Stan and Danny, that's why we didn't pick Jamie.
Maybe if we cast Jamie, it would have all made sense, and you'd have had to cut them out like 20 times.
So Julia, now we're getting into the merge, and once again, I feel like you have this pull and this power where you could save Jeremy here if you wanted to. I feel like you had enough pull to say, Stan, let's keep Jeremy here. Let's do something different. Annie's name was the first name. Then it kind of flipped to, I think, like Veronica. Then it flipped to Jeremy, and then also Danny's name was there too. And you knew that they were voting for Danny, and you also voted for Danny because you wanted to get Jeremy's jury vote in the future. Because that's what you said in your voting confessional. Did you really ever consider maybe using the idol, or just trying to get the votes more so toward Danny? Because I feel like you were kind of like going back and forth.
Yeah. That's such a good question. So I think what was going through my head, I think after having 3 swap votes with Veronica and Annie, I was like, my number one priorities are Veronica and Annie. And how do I make sure I'm Veronica's number one? Like, it's fine if Jeremy and Veronica get split up. Obviously, like, I still vote for Danny and I want Danny. Like, I think when I say I want Jeremy's jury vote, and I was like, oh my God, I just want so many people's jury vote. Like, what the fuck? But it was because I knew that I think I knew the votes were going towards Jeremy. Also, after Jeremy's like bombastic tribal council where he like throws Kristen underneath the bus, and then Kristen was like, well, now I'm gonna vote for Jeremy. I think it was just very clear that Jeremy was gonna go home. But I think I know that Jeremy's the kind of person who's like crunching the numbers. And if he sees that the numbers don't align with who he thought he was aligned with, he would like figure that out. And so I don't think I was ever going to use, I mean, he knew that, right? Like, I don't think I was ever going to use the idol on Jeremy. Like, you see Jeremy's like, oh, she's not going to use the idol on me. Annie, go babysit her. And I think a lot of it just starts with like, I think one is like, I want to be Veronica's number one. That's number one. And then number 2 was I was just I told people about the idol because I wanted to change my position in the tribe and then do whatever the hell I wanted with that idol. Like, I'm going to come up with some crazy idea that only I know about to do some crazy move. And so I think when I just don't like, maybe this is ever, I don't like being told what to do. So if someone was like manipulating me to be like, oh, I should use the idol on Jeremy, then like, okay, like I think for the idol, I want it to be my decision on what I want to do. And so anyone who was like putting a lot of pressure on me to use the idol in a way that I didn't that I didn't come up with. Like, I just wanted to get rid of that pressure. And I feel like once Jeremy was gone, I don't think I had. I mean, actually, there is one person who told me to use idle on them. We will get back. Well, we will get into that, and I think it didn't make it into the edit. But I don't think I really had people being like, "Oh, you need to use the idle on this person. You need to use the idle on that person." You know, and so, yeah. But yeah, that was just a situation of. I don't know. I feel like. Yeah, I definitely wanted Danny to have gone home, but I knew it was going towards Jeremy. But I didn't. I still didn't think it was the right time.
No, I completely agree.
I still think I would have lost. I mean, I lost social capital anyways because of my stupid indecisive. But I think I would have lost so much social capital because I think that swap tribe wanted it. If they were to have gone to tribal, they all wanted Jeremy out, and so it just wouldn't have been a good move for me. Like it would have solidified that I was in the minority.
For
and
sure.
I think I was continuing to play a fluid game up until Robin's vote.
Okay, so you do get the night to kind of like, get to know people, but I'm assuming you were very tired at this point as well, just from the long day. Do you feel like any like new things sort of developed with all that like time through the night?
The only thing I could remember was I think maybe Robin told me that someone on green had the idol, and maybe they told me it was Kristen. But I'm pretty sure we were all so tired that I don't think there was that much socializing that night.
Yeah, we kind of ran you ragged that day because of the game.
But I do remember, and maybe Robin can confirm, but I feel like I was like, Robin, who has idol on her tribe, and I think Robin was like, it's Kristen. I think. I don't remember quite.
Well. I think somebody did confirm that.
Yeah, and then like
that's what happened
later on or something. But I don't think I will I was definitely not in the mindset to, and maybe I don't know, maybe I should have like put my bed next to Danny or something so I could form a connection. But I do think a lot of like the reason why like I literally like
confirmed.
Merge vote for Danny. Andy's vote, the reason why it's Andy is because Stan did not want it to be Danny because he was protecting Danny, but he's willing to let go of Andy. Robin's vote, I vote for Danny. Like, and then my vote out, like, I was manipulated into thinking Veronica was my only way out, right? So, like, we're going after each other because we have literally just never talked to each other, and we both think that there's no way to work with each other. And so I think why am I talking so much? Yeah, so maybe like I just always my gameplay is like I want to make sure all of my bases are covered so that I can operate in this like era of fluidity. Like to explain it, like right, like Helen got voted out in season 44, episode 2, and the reason why is like she feels comfortable in her majority alliance. No, like the reason why, even though I voted out one of my allies and Andrew, I was still able to work with everyone. And so I don't want to say my downfall is not having a relationship with Danny, but like, I don't think that's true at all. But I don't remember much from that night.
I think that you and Veronica had that same struggle with Danny because you guys are all just meeting each other for the first time. I don't know how Annie was able to shift that relationship. Maybe she went into the merge like really focusing on that specific relationship because their relationship only blossomed, but then you kind of see, like you said, you are constantly going after Danny and kind of vice versa, and the same between him and Veronica. So I think you were so correct in saying like those relationships that never really happened between the purple girls and then those other greens kind of like really dictated some of the sides that occurred in the merge and had long lasting effects. And that kind of like leads into the next vote because in the beginning it was really going to be you and Veronica split. Everybody was going to split to force your idol out. But then last minute, people wanted to make a big move that benefited the girls and Robin, which ended up being Andy. Well, it wasn't really benefiting the girls. I was really trying to split up the green because green had too many numbers at that point, and the only person that everybody was kind of willing to go for was Andy. Do you wish in that moment that maybe you could have talked to Annie and Veronica, maybe one other person, maybe Robin, and said, why don't the four of us just vote for Danny or vote for, I don't know,
Why don't we vote for
somebody else?
Edgardo? You know,
Why don't we vote for who?
Edgardo. That's a driver feature.
So
Driver feature.
the Stacey Kimmel thing. Yeah, that's such a good question. Oh, that's a really good question. And
Don't pain yourself, Julia. This is supposed
no,
to be
no, no.
fun.
Are
Okay.
you flashbacks? I think the reason why we didn't do Danny, and I think I didn't realize this until the Robin vote out, was I wanted to make sure that, like, even though Stan and I didn't vote on the Jeremy Danny vote together, I wanted to make sure that, like, Stan and I were still, like, on each other's same plans. So, and also at the time I was like, maybe Andy, like, even though Andy and I made a secret deal, I went to Andy, right? And I'm like literally crying because I really did feel like I have a bond with him. And if he had told me, and he was I think upfront, I think he was basically saying like, yeah, they're splitting the vote between you and Veronica, and if you want to get out, like if you want to make it through, like you need to vote for Veronica. And I was like, oh crap, that means like Andy is really close to Danny. So I think I kind of viewed it as like, okay, get rid of Andy. Like he is Danny's closest ally. It's the next best option. Like, even though that like it's weird, right? Because Andy is the next best option to weaken Danny, but also Andy was someone I think willing to work with me because we had connections. We bonded on night 0. We had like a secret deal. But as soon as he told me to vote for Veronica, it kind of solidified that, I don't know, he was going to vote with the Greens and there wasn't that much room to vote for him. And I also felt like, yeah, I think Andy had a really strong relationship with Danny. I felt like Veronica and Danny kept trying to work together, but never knew if they could like trust each other. But I just didn't know like how many of them would, I just felt like they were too, there's so much paranoia about Danny's relationships with other people that I just didn't think I could bring it together. But maybe I think some lessons learned is there are some times where I could have been a little bit more proactive in the way I wanted things to go. And also to like, that's what Stan did, right? Like Stan would be like, I'm not doing Danny at the Jeremy vote. Stan would be like, I'm not doing Danny at the Andy vote. And he would be very clear with what he wanted to do and what he didn't want to do, which also meant sometimes like what he wanted just didn't end up happening, right? Like he wanted Veronica out, that didn't happen. But I'm just rambling now, but
well, I want to.
Yeah, go ahead, Naomi.
I was going to throw an observation in here, which is about like the what people want versus what outcome they receive. Is I think that this season is also kind of a lesson in like the being selfishness of Survivor, because I think Julia, you and Robin were willing to give a lot more to keep Stan happy, and that would involve not voting for Danny, and that would involve voting on Andy instead, or not, keeping Sharif in, or whatever sort of goal that Sharif or Stan had, versus they wouldn't really have the same respect back for you. And I don't think it's a disrespect, but I think it's this idea of like, well, I don't really care if Julia gets upset about this. And they never really vocalized that, but I'm sure that in their minds, I can recover, I think is maybe the way to say it. I can recover if Julia is upset about this, or I can recover if Robin or Kristen or whoever. I mean, Danny told Sharif about Kristen's fucking idol, and he was able to recover from that. I will never, God bless Kristen.
But also, so I did have this, there's one conversation I had with Danny that I remember, where as soon as Andy gets voted out, I go to Danny and be like, do you see what just happened there? Stan spearheaded the vote for Andy. Like, he's not telling you the truth. Like, he's not fully working with you. And Danny's like, oh, whatever. And then Stan goes to him and is like, I'm so sorry. Like, it was going to be you or Andy. So I made sure it was Andy. Right. So Stan was able to recover. Like, there were times where, so I think with Stan, Sharif, and Danny, there were so many times they did not vote on the same page, but the one thing they did do was protect the other people, even if they weren't voting together. And so like I was trying to like plant a seed and grow a crack. But again, I had no idea that Jamie existed. I had no idea that they already knew each other, because I was like, otherwise, like in my head, it's like literally Stan is the person, and from my perspective, and feel free to correct me, Stan is a person who spearheads like Andy going out. And so like, why would you trust Stan when he just gets your number one ally voted out, right? But again, pre-existing relationships matter. And I don't think a lot of people knew that Stan and I knew each other before, and Rob and I had played together before as well. So I think because of that, people were sometimes confused about like, wait, why is Julie and Robin so close, you know?
Yeah, and Stan, I think it's exactly what I'm saying, which is like, or I should say, I want to clarify what I'm saying is that I do think you cared about them. I also think that in a survivor, you need to be selfish with your desires and your wants, and you can usually win an ally back over in a short amount of time because there's nowhere to go, right? Like, you don't have 20 days to make a new alliance and pivot. You've got like 10 minutes. So it's kind of this terrible thing where you can sort of like screw over an ally, as I think we kind of keep seeing with Kristen and Danny, where Danny will tell other people about her idol and all these things where you're like, what is going on? And yet she's consistently working with him because he does still have her back in a lot of ways, and he is still working for her benefit. Yeah, exactly, Sam. Like, and that's my point. We should be selfish. I think if there's one lesson that players should take away, especially I think like feminine players and sort of less big strong players, as we saw in this episode of Survivor that just aired, is you got to be a little more selfish and assertive because everyone else is going to be, and you should match them rather than think that you're being too aggressive or too blank, because you're probably just matching the energy from other people.
I have two comments. One, I want to comment to Stan's comment of people didn't realize how close Sharif and Stan were. 100%. Because Veronica was like, it's girls, Robin and Sharif. So let's tell Sharif about the plan to vote Stan out. And then you see me telling her, being like, Sharif's the one who told Stan about you wanting to vote Stan out, so you can't trust Sharif. And then Veronica is like, well, I still trust Sharif or something. I still trust, I don't know. She said something about like, but I still trust Sharif, even though he told Sharif about the Stan vote. And so I feel like I told her several times where it's like, if you want a plan to vote Stan out, you cannot include Sharif. Sharif is going to run back and tell Stan. And I think that's why the vote failed, because if it was just girls and Robin, and then Robin and I would have been like, oh, like that's where the numbers are, you know, like I think Stan, you know, has whatever. So that's my comment on, I think especially Veronica did not realize how close Sharif and Stan were, which is why she kept telling Sharif about the plan to vote Stan out. The other thing that you said about being selfish, feminine players, I'm trying to remember what you said. I can't remember.
Just want to say, Robin says we would have ate that. I agree, Robin. It would have been a move.
I'm just mad at Stan a little bit, basically. Because it's like, okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but like, put it to this perspective, Julia. It's like, Stan knew you before the game, knew Robin before the game, didn't actually play with Sharif until the very end of day one, and said how he was super close to Sharif. So if he was super close to Sharif, he really could have had the pull to save Robin, had the pull to save you, if he really wanted to, but it didn't work out that way. But he got his way to save Danny, right? Robin gives him the clue, but he still sort of doesn't get his way in those regards. And it's interesting, that relationship, to me, because like the relationship between them happened so late of them actually playing the game together, versus like you, who he played a lot of the game with and had a previous relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like his insertive dominance in the game only happened at like certain points that he chose versus throughout.
Right.
If that makes sense. I feel like the big boys just seem to be only on his mind, and that kind of circles back to Real Foot season 3, unfortunately, from what I've heard.
It's so funny. That's so funny. Sorry, Naomi, can you? Oh, wow, this is so meaningful. Wow. Oh,
Hi, Coach.
Andrew, we love you. We've been talking about you a lot earlier,
No,
and
Andrew.
you should have made it further.
Wow.
Anyway,
Andrew's robbed.
Yeah, I think Stan's right.
Yeah, that Julia and Robin would have.
I think Stan's
I think Stan's right.
Like, I mean, I think Sharif's an incredible, really adept player, but I feel like his blind spot is Stan. And I think Robin and I definitely know that, like, you need there's a time you keep Stan, like, you keep standing around for long enough, but yeah.
I think it's in hindsight, though. I really think in the midst of that game and the high pressures of like how quick the game was going and the reliability of each person, I think that there's a real chance in the game that you could have went to the end with Stan. And it all depended on, like, obviously, like, the challenge and, you know, what the votes were each round. I think that could have been the thought for you, but I do believe there is a strong possibility that you and Stan could have sat in the end.
Right. No, I mean, we don't have to. There was just it was something you brought up like 5 minutes ago that I really wanted to respond to, but I can't remember, and I should have written.
Yeah, just I think the people who I would say are categorically the opposite of the big boys, I think in Survivor in general, it's very difficult to overcome what I think a lot of women experience in day-to-day life, which is like, I will be the I don't want to say these words to say that men are not these things, but like you find yourself in like the babysitter role where you're the nurturer, you're not the like dictator. You are being kind to people and you are putting their emotions ahead of yours sometimes versus the selfish attitude we're talking about in Survivor, which is go out and take it. It's yours, you deserve it.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank you so much. I remember what I was going to say. So all those times that Stan was like, I'm not doing Danny, I'm not doing Danny, I'm not doing Danny. He's making his position really clear, right? Versus, like, I think for me, and this is hopefully a lesson that I can learn in order for things to go my way in the future so I don't have to come up with crazy plans, is that I really did not want my position to be clear to anyone. And I was always constantly playing the middle, which means you can't take a stance and you can't take a position. And so, like, especially in the Veronica and Robin vote, everyone thought that they were like, oh, who are the votes we have for Veronica, Julia? Who are the votes that we have for Robin, Julia? You know? And so, yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe I was just playing too much in the middle. I think maybe hopefully in the future I can be a little bit more assertive, because sometimes even if I am like giving away my position, like in poker, right? You're revealing a little bit more information. Sometimes you need to reveal the information in order to like get what you want. Because otherwise, in order to get what you want, it's going to be a much harder path if you don't make it clear to other people where you lie, right?
Well, I think it does in some ways benefit you in the Andy vote, because I think that the Andy vote's a really big sort of won over on a lot of people, even including Robin is a big sort of won over on everyone. But I think you're very right in that there's a strategy of playing like the full middle, covering all the bases, and then there's the other side of being very distinct about protecting some people. Because I've also seen in there's a really great, this is like such a tangent, but there's a really great 2-person alliance in Survivor Michigan where these 2 guys are in 2 4-person alliances. It's them and 3 other people, but they are in a secret 2-person alliance with each other. And they make the end together because they strategically save each other between the other 2 alliances. And then by the time they get to the end, they are able to manipulate their allies into like, oh, look, let's work with this person. And I think it can be done. Absolutely. I think that the problem is that in a game like this, decisions need to be made. And so you see people like Veronica, her plan is constantly floated out there because she's always talking about it. She's always making it known what she wants to do.
Right.
They're very confident in the person who is dictating what exactly they want to do. It's a weird phenomenon where it's like, I don't think it is like normal Survivor in some ways.
Well, it's fascinating because I feel like Veronica and I played very different games. And I do think in like, what I loved about Veronica's and I relationship, especially in the swap, was like I felt comfortable. We both felt comfortable to each other telling that like we can't do that. Like she was one of the few people where I was like, oh, I can't do that. Like I can't do Ed. But you saw that with Veronica because Veronica was so transparent about her plans. She never got her way because people get that information and then they think of if that benefits them. If it doesn't, they're going to foil it. And so my way of gameplay was like, let me get as much information as possible and then let me see what I can do with that information. But the problem is with these 15-minute strategy rounds, when you've gathered information for 15 minutes and then you come up with a plan, you're not always going to be able to execute. And so there's like many spectrums, right? There's like Veronica who like everyone knows what she's going to do. And then she has to make compromises because she realizes, like, she has a confessional where she's like, I'm so sick of like all of my plans just being floated around. Right. And then you have like me who like doesn't tell anyone what I'm doing. And in the episode I get voted out because people didn't know where my head was at. They just stopped trusting me. And then there's like maybe people in the middle who are like, they don't always have a plan, but they know who their untouchables are, right? And they're going to make clear who their untouchables
are. I want to, Julie, I don't know if you remember this moment. One of the funnier, like, non, like, actual gameplay related moments is the hurricane was coming. I'm curious, anybody who's been watching who doesn't know about it, how does it look so far to you? Because it's only going to get worse. There was this really funny moment I remember with you where I told you guys, like, okay, we're hoping to end at like 6 or 7. We were basically pushing things up by 2 hours. And you just looked and you're like, why did you lie to us? I was like, I lied to you? And you're like, yeah, you said the game was going to end at like 8 or 9. And I was like, oh, well, we didn't know there was a hurricane coming, so we pushed it up. I felt bad. I think you had planned your sort of trip home around that time. And then we pushed the time up because it was like going to get crazy. And I just remember you asked me, why did you lie to me?
I am so sorry. I do not remember saying that. It was probably definitely like being so tired.
Yes. It was
really I definitely in my head, I was like, fuck, like it's just going to go from like 25-minute strategy rounds to like 15 or like 10, So
yeah, that was pretty bad. There's one strategy round. Chris, did you see this in the footage where you're just chasing? People will not talk to you, Julia. I felt terrible by the end. You would just be I would be running after you with the camera chasing you because people would not stay where you were staying. You had to run after them.
Yeah, I think it made it into the episode, right?
Yes.
What? Oh my god! I'm gonna cry. Wait, like so many people from all these communities. I love you, Frank.
I told you, Julia.
The originator of the pants stand is
I'm shook. I'm really shook right now.
But that moment was so funny just because they were the 4 of them, the big boys and Brienne, were trying to have a conversation. And I think I don't think Veronica was in it. And basically they were trying to talk and then they see you guys were walking toward them and then they were like, okay, let's run over to this spot. So they just started running. And then you guys were like, oh, we're gonna run too. And it just didn't make sense, but it just like felt like you had to do it, in the moment. And then they were like, okay, let's just all split off. And then it wasn't really anything because everyone was just bullshitting each other after that.
Right.
So, like you were talking, I think you went to go talk to like Kristen or somebody, and then Danny went with Annie, and it was just everybody bullshitting, not saying what the plan was. But that was for your vote out.
Yes, yeah. Remind me if I made it into episode, but I do remember saying at Tribal where I was like, I know I'm going home because I ran after people to talk to me and no one would talk to me.
You didn't say you knew you were going home, but you were saying that people were just avoiding talking to you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny. I was watching Davey's like recap where he was like, "This might be one of the saddest moments I've ever seen in the LRG." Where like Julia's holding up her item, being like, "My allies can't look me in the eye anymore. No one trusts me."
It's like Shakespeare.
It's a good moment. We're getting ahead though. Okay, because the episode before is
Yes, I know. It's the big episode.
that's
Yeah.
like a shining episode. Okay, I mean, tribal. Let's just go into the tribal council because, well, no, let's go. Let's rewind a bit. So,
Wait, no, go back, go back.
Veronica comes up with the plan for Stan. It falls through. Then they propose the split vote plan between Danny and Kristen. It becomes the plan. Then everybody sees Robin talking to Danny and Kristen. So then this new ideology from Stan became that Robin told them the plan. Sharif and everybody got upset, so they flipped the vote onto Robin. You're the one that went and told Robin about what Stan did, which causes Robin to like spiral a little bit and say, "Why did you turn on me, Stan?" And then Stan, in retaliation, goes, "Okay, maybe you were right. Maybe you didn't say anything, Robin. Let's all vote for Veronica." So it's very chaotic in that moment because it flipped within 7 minutes. It flipped between 5 different people. So where did you really sit in all this? What did you want to do? Because it went kind of like all over the place.
I mean, I was clear. I think there's that confessional where it's like, I can't vote Stan. I can't vote Robin. I can't vote Veronica. I'm voting for Danny no matter what. I wanted Danny to go home. But it just like, and I do have some regrets, whereas like, I do have some regrets where I was just like, I can't do Robin or I can't do Veronica. Or like maybe I would have had to be clear. I can't do any of those people. I can only do Danny or something. But I definitely think like you can just see me. I'm not saying anything. I'm just reacting to what people are saying. And then I'm like, ugh, like, how are we going to get out of this mess? And also, I already saw that the vote on Stan had changed and Danny and Kristen changed. So I was just hoping it would change again. But yeah, I mean, I think by the time I realized I thought it was going to be 4 Robin, 4 Kristen. I didn't realize that Danny flipped and it was 4 Robin, 4 Veronica. I didn't realize it was 5 Robin and 3 Veronica, because like you see me in tribal being like, because I thought the votes were going to be tied and then we were at a tie vote and I'd be like, this would have been crazy, because then I was like, wait, I'm the one who voted for Danny and then I'm the one who decides who goes home. That's my reaction of the freak out. And then you hear the 5th vote, which is for Robin. And then I was like, wait, who flipped? But where do I stand? I don't know. I just wanted Danny, but like I do regret not having said. But I think when Stan was like, Robin told Danny and Kristen the plan, I did genuinely believe Stan. And then you actually do see Robin going to them. They don't say we're splitting the votes on Danny and Kristen, I'm doing Danny or whatever. Robin says they're splitting the vote between the 3 of us. So Robin did kind of say the plan. If Robin didn't say the plan, Robin would have said, hey, we're all doing Veronica, So I think there was like a little bit of merit into what Stan said. But then when I go to Robin and like, did you tell them the plan? Yeah, like Robin didn't tell them the full plan, but Robin told them half of the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, that round was just so crazy and so frenetic. And that was like, none of these outcomes are good for me. So let me come up with a crazy plan. And then you hear in Robin's exit interview where Robin and I are whispering about, hey, so I think this is where like we just didn't communicate like properly. I thought Robin was going to tell Kristen to use the idol on them because I don't have a relationship with Kristen. So why would Kristen trust me when I say, like, even though like, Kristen like crawls her way to the tribal idol, the podium, and says like, how should I use this idol? I was fully convinced if I said, Kristen, don't use it on you, use it on Robin. First of all, then all of my allies are like, why the fuck is Julia saying to use your idol on Robin when we're all voting for Robin? So that's why I was like, I should have gone first, played it on Veronica. Also, I remember in that confessional saying, I have to use the idol and I'm going to use my idol on Veronica. So I felt like I had to go first, play on Veronica, and then win Kristen. I don't know. I think if we had 5 more minutes, I think we could have made the plan I had in my head go through. But I mean, I think people in their analysis is right. I picked the fourth worst option. Like as soon as, and also the other thing I was afraid of, and you can hear in the episode, is that we thought both Kristen and Danny had an idol.
Mhm.
And so for me, I was just praying to God that Kristen wasn't using their idol on Danny. And I felt like any information I gave to Kristen could have played it on Danny, and then my vote wouldn't work at all. So there was just so many what ifs. And I think I just didn't communicate with Robin, where it's like the only way this can work is like, and also Robin didn't realize how much in danger they were. I think if Robin realized how much in danger they were, they would have told Kristen to use her idol. But you can hear that Robin was like, oh, Brienne's with me, Sharice's with me, all these people are with me. And that's why I made the tribal live, because I still didn't know where the votes were. So I asked Stan, who you're voting for, Veronica. I asked Sharif, who are you voting for, Robin. And that's when it clicks into my head, like, oh crap, like I think it's like a 4-4 vote. But then it's like, again, most people don't know that I'm working with Robin. And so I'm pretty sure I like told Robin like, hey, I think you're in danger. And I think Robin like shook me off and was like, hey, don't talk to me. Like, we can't let people know that we're working together. And so, yeah, but I like, as soon as Kristen did not use the idol on Robin, I should have either played it on myself so I don't have that target on my back, or just not brought it up and just let like fate hold or whatever. But I literally chose like the worst possible option, because for me, it's like I just need time to make a decision. So the only thing I could think about is like, let me stall this decision, right? Because if you were like, does anyone else have an idol, and no one says anything for 5 seconds, yeah. But I mean, that should have been fine, right? I probably would have. Oh no,
Julia, we were so close to making this the thumbnail. We were so close, but we determined it was too much of a spoiler.
Oh, I think the one where I'm looking at Veronica is a pretty good thumbnail.
Isn't it funny? I like that it almost looks like you have a disdain. You don't actually have any disdain for her in that moment, but it's like a very funny, like you look like you have a little bit of disdain.
Right, because I'm side-eyeing her, yeah.
Yeah, and so it kind of makes you think like, oh, what's going to happen between Veronica and Julia in this episode of Survivor New York? Yeah.
So, Julia, did you, like, when you didn't use the idol, what did you think was going to happen again? Like, did you have, like, an idea of what was happening? Because you didn't use it, so you had this knowledge that you were safe, but did you think that it was going to go in the direction... I mean, we knew Danny wasn't going to go. I'm pretty sure you didn't know as well.
It was just... that me staying up there for 3 minutes was me trying to like process all the information I had and figure out where the votes were going. Because there was a time where everyone was saying that they were going to split the votes in Danny and Kristen, right? So it was just, I thought it was going to be 4-4 Robin, Veronica, and then I realized I can't plan on Robin or Veronica because the other person is just going to be mad at me. So I should have just played on myself or not gotten up. That's the only thing I could have done after Kristen played on herself.
If it had tied, do you think you would have voted Veronica out or Robin?
Oh, that's a good question.
Think about in that moment.
Oh, no, you're gonna get a 3-minute waiting of me thinking.
No more waiting.
If it was tied, will I have voted for Veronica or Robin? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Would you have let us speak?
I would have let them speak, the two of them, like made a pitch.
I don't know. Would I have been like, oh, let's just all go to Rocks? I don't know. I'm kidding.
Well, you technically couldn't have gone to Rocks because it was a final 9, so it would have been an odd number. I will say, Julia, I think that actually Robin staying in the game is a better opportunity for you. And that's not to say that Veronica wasn't a beneficial ally to you. I think she absolutely was. I also think that, like, Veronica, you Robin Stan is a very tight group versus you Veronica Stan is not so tight a group, you know? Like, the way that Stan keeps flip-flopping on working with Veronica versus not working with Veronica, where you have that connection where I think, like you're talking about, Kristen and Robin can then bring you closer to Kristen, which then can lead to something else down the line. Like, it's an interesting connection point that I think you lose in that moment. But also, Robin says, you can say me, it's fine. I do think that Veronica is such a tight ally to you, and in some ways is a big threat in front of you. It just unfortunately...
Actually,
I think...
Sorry.
I think people paired me and Veronica together, right?
Yeah.
So, and I did view, like, I always think that, like, I have many thoughts about, I want to say, like, Veronica was Cody and I'm like Jesse. I don't know. It was just like she's the one out front and she was the one who like would deliver to people what the plan was, right? And she was the one who, like, we would work together in the swap for a plan, and then she was the one who everyone thought it was her. And so, yeah. But sorry, Chris, you're gonna say something.
I was just gonna say, I feel like if it had tied, I feel like Danny in that situation would have voted to keep Robin. I think it was like there's a slight chance that he may have voted
Yeah,
Robin out, but I do think in a way he might have saved Robin
yeah,
if he had the opportunity to make that decision.
yeah. I don't think Danny flipped because he thought it was between Robin and Veronica. I think Danny voted Robin because he thought it was either him or Robin.
Right.
Yeah. Because he has a confessional where he's like, Robin's way more willing to work with me, and like Veronica and I, they just don't have that trust built.
Right. And I do agree with you. If you had played your idol, and I thought about this scenario and like tried to detail in my head what I think would have happened in the future. If you'd used your idol in this particular tribal council, I think the following round, you have no threat. The idol nullifier really doesn't mean much in the game anymore. So then I think that you, Stan, Brienne, Sharif could have moved forward, maybe Danny and Kristen as well, and then the two other purple girls may have been the next two to leave, which would have put you in the final 6. And I don't think you were like considered such a big threat at that point. So I do have a feeling that you would have made it to the final 5 or 4 at least if you had played the idol at that tribal council.
Well, I'll add this. My observation is like this is what Kristen actually does successfully, right? Kristen throws the idol away and then it doesn't matter anymore. I don't know. I thought Annie was. I don't know, Chris. I thought Annie was pretty darn tight in the the group of them.
I think she was close, but I think Julia was a little bit closer. But that idol, if like say in the opposite realm that Annie was the one with the idol, I think it would have happened to Annie as well.
Julia,
Just
what cookies do you have? Sorry, I got a sidebar. I want to know what cookies you're eating.
I just have gluten-free vanilla wafers.
Whoa, I've never seen that brand.
Apparently, my therapist has the same brand, and I was like, wow. Okay.
Vanilla wafers. Sorry, Chris. I love cookies. Let's keep going.
That's
what do you
fine.
want? What else is there to talk about?
I really enjoy that, like, the two of you guys are also going through so many scenarios.
I don't love, people get so bogged down in them, and I only like talking about them right now when it's like we've all got it out of our systems. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think. Actually, yeah. Feel free to. I had a thought, but I was like, it's just gonna hammer a point. Like it says, so never mind.
I do want to say for the next tribal council, another scenario that's run through my head a million times is how could Julia have gotten herself from not being voted out? And I don't know if we talked about it in a different podcast or somewhere, Naomi, but I think if you had said to Sharif or maybe Brienne or maybe even Danny said, hey, you know what? I know I'm in danger here. I know you have the idol nullifier. If I give you this idol instead of leaving it within my pocket, would you keep me in this game or something like that effect? To like, I think if you had done it to Sharif, I do think it could have worked. And I think that was like your only.
Stan would have voted your ass out.
Stan wouldn't have cared. Stan would have cared. Stan would have loved it. But I think Sharif or Brienne may have been that key person enough to be like, you know what? Let's keep her. Let's do like a Veronica or an Annie, maybe a Kristen, and let's keep her at least one more round for that.
Yeah, 100%. I do think the play there definitely would have been like, or even like give it to. You're right. I think Sharif was the person who held the power because I think Sharif's the person who almost drives my vote, and then Danny is the one who solidifies and be like, I have the idol nullifier. I was also thinking about like maybe I could have given it to Veronica so Veronica would believe that I was going to use the idol on her and that I didn't vote her out. I think the reason why I didn't think about that was I do think Danny did a really good job of making it seem like he used a nullifier during Jeremy's vote. And so I mean, we were both, it's so funny because we were on like parallel paths. We never talked to each other. We never played together. We were both like our own different agent of chaos. He was someone who was constantly spilling information, and I was someone just doing things that other people couldn't predict. But for the idol nullifier, like he intentionally like hid it in the tribal booth, and I think he wanted people to think that it was gone. So like in the processing like of like when I put my idol back on my over my neck, I think I had thought like, oh, I think Danny's idol nullifier is gone, so this is fine. Like I messed up here, but I'm just gonna play my idol next, and hopefully I can slip through after. And so he was really good at causing chaos and confusion about his nullifier. That I do think after my like terrible tribal, I do think I did not have the self-awareness of just how in deep shit I was. I don't think I realized how bad my position was until people stopped talking to me and people were running away from me. And I think this is where I was just so selfish about the idol, whereas like the idols I'm the only one who's going to play it. It could be for someone else. And so because I didn't fully think the nullifier was in play, I didn't think about the strategy of like I should give it away. But I do think like I wish I had come up with that plan, and I didn't realize just like as soon as I made the tribal live during the Robin vote out and I asked Sharif who he was voting for, immediately Sharif lost his trust in me. You know, like immediately, like I was just doing something that Sharif did not expect. I was just doing something that, like, I mean, that game, like me, that Robin vote out, I think my stock was like pretty decent, and I just like plummeted, and I just lost all the social capital I had. Yeah, I wish I had thought about that, but I didn't because I didn't realize. No, absolutely not, absolutely not. And this was the part where I think it got edited out, and we can get into this.
What
Which
did
part?
Chris leave on the cutting room floor?
Not the right person to give the idol to, because so when I asked like, hey, who should I use this idol on? Like my allies won't look at me. Stan was like, you should play it on me. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like your name has never come up. I don't think your name's gonna come. Why should I play it on you? But I think Chris is right. Like I should give it to the people who maybe had the most influence at the time and who are the most flippable. And I should have given my idol to maybe like Sharif or Veronica or Brienne. Because I think Stan was, he was fine with, he knew the plan was I was going to get voted out. Like,
yeah,
vote for me. He actually voted for
Annie
because he wanted to sow division between Veronica and Annie. Or my perspective is he told me to vote Veronica because that was the only way to save myself. And then I think in the next vote, everyone thinks that Stan still voted for Veronica. But people were like, oh, who did the Annie vote came from? And they pinned it on me. They were like, Julia voted for Annie. And I think it like goes into this narrative of like, wow, these three purple girls, they all turn on each other, right? Julia votes for Annie. Annie votes for Veronica. Veronica votes for Julia. Because the entire time Stan wants Veronica out, but he votes for Annie.
I love a good Survivor triangle, by the way. That's one of those rare scenarios in Survivor. But that's one of our, like, I think 3 in 6 seasons that's ever happened. So you get voted out, and I don't know if you remember, but you do your final words, and then after it's over, you sort of break down a little bit, and I remember you were like really upset and very emotional.
Mm-hmm.
And do you remember what drove those emotions for you?
I remember one of the things I said was like, I need Robin. Where's Robin?
Yeah.
Because Robin is like someone I have known and just someone I know would be there for me. And yeah, I think the emotions were like, I like fucked up. Like I really could have gone further. And because there was like, certain personality character, like the time I said, I wish I was bolder, right? There's certain personality characteristics about me that I felt like held me back because, yeah. And so, yeah. And I don't know. I just feel like in general, these allergies are an emotional experience for everyone. And I'm in general a pretty emotional person. Yeah. But I think it was just, I don't know, maybe it didn't go the way that I wanted to. And yeah, and it's hard to like, it's hard when like everyone, yeah, Robin did. It's hard when like everyone, I think all the emotions were like, wow, I had so many people who trusted me and worked with me. And then all of them, except for Annie, turned on me. Like Veronica voted for me, right? Sharif, who I was working with, voted for me. And I think it was just like it was my fault. It wasn't betrayal. It was like my fault. Like I caused my allies to turn on me.
But I also think in all of this, it's very easy, I think, to be very hard on yourself. It was also like at that point, over 24 hours of just playing so hard, right? Because it doesn't start on the day one hit the beach, it starts on night 0.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's strategizing from Friday evening all the way up until like Sunday midday. And you've just been going and going. I remember I've talked about it before that like Veronica and other people were so upset that we did a challenge at night, but it was because we needed to get ready for the next, like there's no time to breathe, no time to sleep and relax. And I think that was also a little bit of it catching up to you as it caught up to other people. I think also I mean, I assume most people have watched the next episode that has already come out, but when Veronica gets voted out, she's also very emotional.
Yeah.
And I think it's, it's exhaustion. It's like a very exhausting experience.
It's like a relief too. Like you don't have to run around, you don't have to strategize, lie, and backstab, and it's like a lot of pressure cook into like 2 days of your life. When you got emotional after getting voted out, I remember getting a little emotional too because I was like, I don't know how this affects people like long term. Like I've played a lot of games, and I'm not gonna lie, I still think about them sometimes, and like maybe you do too, Naomi. Like you've mentioned your real fit experience a few times. Like it's something that kind of like holds on to us for I don't know how long until I'll stop remembering it. So I hate seeing people cry because it makes me feel guilty in a lot of ways. So I hope that
Aww.
you look back at this experience more in a positive light. And I think now that's been like almost 2 years, like hopefully you're able to like reflect back and only see like the good in it. And I think having this interview for me at least is like a closure on that. Like just to know that like you are thinking of this in a positive way and you've talked so highly about it. So I'm glad that like you are at rest with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Julia, as a juror now, and not spoiling anything in the actual vote, but what are you looking for in a winner? What kind of game are you looking to reward? And what matters to you in a winner? And why is that me? What matters to you?
I think what matters to me is usually like self-awareness. And just like what I like when I'm a juror, when I'm asking questions, like I want to hear that like they were actually aware of what was happening and they were aware of how they were being perceived. And just like it's not like bragging about I did XYZ and ABC, it's also like it's just I don't awareness, nuance. Yeah.
I can't wait for you guys to see Julia's jury question because I'm editing the finale and I literally LOL so hard at one of the parts in it, and I can't go into detail, but it's really funny. And
I mean, I don't think I'm spoiling anything, but
do you know what I'm talking about, Joe? Do you
I do know
remember it?
I do know what you're talking about, and and like I think it's similar to I was a juror in Penthouse. Spoilers for any of that, and in Penthouse, I'm just like laying it into people. So I think one of my questions I like lay into someone, or like I refute their answer or something. I say like, that's not right. Like that just means you don't have awareness of blah blah blah.
I'm very excited. I don't remember this moment, so I'm gonna go watch these clips back now. Julia, one thing I also wanted to talk about a little bit is I love that you and Jeremy kind of like found a connection after being voted out. Like you both kept something secret that turns out you shared in common. So that you were part of the same. I don't want to mess this up. You're part of something very smart people.
Yes. So we both went to the same college, and I think it was like, oh, you're Jeremy Berman. I'm pretty sure there was like a Jeremy Berman, and so we were both in a collegiate literary society together,
Ooh,
which
I remembered it right.
basically was like a bunch of nerds every single Friday like give a presentation about something they're passionate about. But he graduated in 2014. I graduated in 2019. But I definitely heard his name. But I think we found out honestly when we were still at Iona, and that's when I was like, oh wow, oh, and I think that's maybe when we made a Final 3 deal together. And I just looked at my messages with Jeremy like last year. I was like, if I knew that he was in the same literary society that I was in college, like on night 0, I would automatically been like, I don't care whatever Jeremy's doing. Like we have this pre-existing connection, whatever. Like I'm gonna work with him to the end. But because
I'll play the idol on him.
yeah, because
That's
I found
so
out much
funny.
later. Because I found out much later, it was already too late. But yeah, that's really cool. It was like, wow, it's such a small world.
It is. Like, I mean, we didn't even know that. I don't know if you knew, Naomi, that you guys went to the same college. I
remember
think
that.
that's gonna have to be like for season 7. We're gonna have to really dig deep. Did you join any literary societies? What school did you go to? What elementary school did you go to? What hospital were you born in? Like, we're gonna have to go deep.
If you go to my school, this literary society is like a very obscure club.
So that makes sense then. It makes sense because it really hits home for you.
Right,
you know?
exactly. And there's like a lot of, I mean, it's like an academic frat or whatever. There's like a lot of traditions that like you can talk about and like that like are just passed down. It's like the oldest club at the school, and there's just like a lot of crazy shit. It's like when frat brothers like reminiscing about hazing, right? It's like, oh, remember this crazy thing and that crazy thing. So yeah.
Julia, what was your favorite moment before we end this? What was your favorite moment overall?
That's such a great question. I think my favorite moment was probably the Kayla vote. No, that's not bad, but it's only because that was the first time I was like, I'm playing Survivor and I'm in the driver's seat. And wow, like all of like, and also I feel, I mean, it reaffirmed that I made the right choice to sacrifice Andrew because I was able to work with Annie and Veronica. Like that was when I felt the most in control of the game. But I mean, in terms of like, that's in game, but in terms of outside of the game, like, you know, lifelong friendships, you know, like there's just so many people that, you know, I've gotten much closer to, you know, I've hosted like in DC. I also think the Survivor New York community is just like way tighter than most LRGs. Partially because, you know, maybe a lot of people live in New York, a lot of people are on the East Coast. But yeah, that was definitely like the moment. That vote was where I felt like the most like powerful.
And you were.
Julia did the thing. No, I'm Julia really glad that we could have you as a part of this season and as a part of the season's family, because I think you're a wonderfully smart person and really funny and I mean, I remember like just doing a Zoom game for a couple hours with you. I was like, Julia rules. Like I love Julia. And it's just been such a treat that you could be a part of this. And I hope that it is a fond experience overall, even if there were some extremely emotionally trying times in the middle of it.
Yeah, I think another one of my favorite parts is like this definitely is like one of the best casts, like super diverse. Everyone's super likable. Everyone is a character personality of their own. So congrats to you guys for just pulling together like a cast that like everyone was there to play, you know, and what I love is that like the edit is so balanced that like and you get to see like everyone's personality and everyone's perspective. So kudos to editing, and also kudos to like all the camera people who are able to capture like everyone's conversations and thoughts.
Yeah, we haven't given, you're right, we haven't given a crew shout out in a while. Especially Davey holding it down with the podcast. Davey talked about it on the podcast how he was shooting OTEV and got the shot for OTEV. And I appreciate, we're teaching everybody to be a cinematographer one Survivor New York season at a time. And I love that.
Yes. Anything you want to say, Julia, before?
Wait, let me visit my notes. I think someone play music. Otherwise, blah 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 blah.
We do have music we do have music here.
Put the Jeopardy music on.
No, there's some really funny like sound effects.
Oh, I think this is the last thing I wanted to say. I said this before we went live, but yeah, I definitely you know, again, Helen got voted out in season 44 episode 2, and as soon as she got voted out, I like sobbed. I like full heavy sobbed, and I like felt really deeply hurt because like I saw myself in Helen. And so I think what I am really grateful for the Survivor New York experience was that like people are able to see like someone who looks like me, someone who's usually stereotyped to I mean, it's not that I'm not smart, but it's like usually people who look like me do not get the chance to play in these games. And I've experienced that in other LRGs. So I'm just, again, you know, there are some moments in the game that I cringe at, but I'm just really grateful to Survivor New York for being able to just show the full complexity of what, you know, an East Asian American woman can be on a sort of live reality game, reality TV show. And I'm just like really grateful for the opportunity, and I'm just blown away by just how much the show just like shows the full breadth of like every single person. So yeah,
we love you, Julia.
Yeah,
you're great.
We really appreciate that, and I think it's also it's really like it does not. I don't think it starts necessarily with us. It's always like the amazing, wonderful people who are on this cast, and I think that it's something that's always on our minds too, right? The Survivor season, I remember when they were like, it's going to be so incredible. You guys are not ready. And then it was like a woman, an Asian woman, a woman. I was like, I don't know what you guys are fucking talking about. But it's certainly like every other Survivor season I've seen so far. And yeah, and I think that if you're interested, somebody has posted like the statistics of what it is to be not only an Asian castaway, but an Asian woman castaway on Survivor. And it's very, very difficult. And I am glad that people, players trust us to put them on a cast where this environment is not indicative of what Survivor, the show, creates. But I also think everyone can take that perspective and think about it a little more. Alex, it's just love watching you. And also, I think that's exactly right.
I want to give a shout out to Alex. So first of all, Alex was did my recap for my vote out, and definitely like knew exactly what I was trying to do. And second of all, like I think Alex was like one of the first crew members who like immediately got like what I was trying to do with my double vote out. And so I'm sad that like I never got to win Alex as a reward, and I didn't get a sandwich from Alex or an advantage from Alex that maybe could have helped me. But yeah, I mean, the crew was just really fantastic.
I'm sad I never got to win Alex as a reward.
Another little funny thing I just want to mention is that every season there's always like one person that ends up staying then like and not going home that night, and you and I got to spend another like maybe 12 maybe another 20 hours together. Do you remember that,
I
Julia?
do remember that because you drove me to the Beacon.
Train station. Because
train
you
station.
had to work in the morning and you
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
So you stayed upstairs, and I was thinking, oh my God, is she dead? Because you were quiet, you were dead silent, and you just kept the door shut and you never like came out. And I was like, okay.
I think I was literally in like listening in on meetings like all day.
I think
Um,
so.
did
I heard you
Annie,
come out one time and you were like, I'm hungry, and I was like, okay.
did Annie leave in the morning?
She left that the night before.
I remember sharing the bed with Annie.
Was it maybe
No.
Kristen?
No, it was just me and Julia. I'm 100% positive.
But we'll have to whatever we talk to Annie, we'll have to see.
Yeah, I like actually remember sharing a bed with Annie.
Wow. All these positive comments, and now Chris is gaslighting Julia. This is
I
great.
swear, I'm not lying. I know who I drove to the train station because I
No,
remember
I feel
Paddock was season 4, season 5 was Julia, and I remember
I
season 6.
know you drove me, but I was like maybe one of like Annie's friends like picked her up in the morning or something. I don't know. Or she
We'll
left.
take this to the group chat.
I remember
Um,
it was, I think Jordan or Alex took her home. But
Right.
anyway, it was honestly so much fun talking to you, Julia. This was one of my favorite podcasts like ever for sure because you're
Oh,
just
that's
such
so
an amazing person and like so funny and so real. And I wish uh, you all the best, and I hope that you play more games and you have so many fans. And when there is another returning season, obviously we're gonna hit you up at some point, and hopefully
oh,
you're in the right
wow.
place of mind to do it again. But we'll see how that
Ooh.
happens. You know,
Oh,
Oh my god! Wow, that's so flattering. Thank you so much.
love it.
of course.
I
We need that laugh in another season.
I just want to say, Julia, you and I, silent podcasters, I'm also so glad that you're a part of this silent podcast crew because I think you have wonderful insights. Because we got to talk about Survivor last season. I thought we did a kick-ass job. Where's that 42? Probably
We
42.
talked about Big Brother.
Well, we talked about Survivor for the LRG network about when it was Survivor New York. Either way, regardless, we're on Silent Podcast, which is this amazing network full of incredible people, wonderful survivor minds, and just entertainers in general. Gia particularly does I think, a fantastic job about talking about the Survivor episodes. And I have to come back to talk about Top Chef at some point. I haven't been doing it. We're talking about Star Wars. We're talking about a lot of different things. So make sure to not only subscribe, not only follow us on Twitter and social media, which I think is in the works, but also give us 5 stars. I look at those 5-star reviews sometimes, and can I tell you, there's not that many familiar names in there. So if everybody just wants to say hi to me personally, say that you love the pod, I really appreciate everybody who watched live. A lot of lovely familiar friends, names, and faces. We're so happy to have you here. And just to announce, we have 2 more episodes left. 2 more episodes left. I've seen the finale that Chris has cooking, and it is so good. So good. So please make sure you're subscribed on YouTube, youtube.com/Survivor New York. Chris, one word to describe the finale. Wet. No.
Oh, that is a great word. That is here comes the hurricane, bitch. Definitely. I would just say honestly intense. Like all the vote outs intense. The final tribal council intense. But another word is definitely emotional. There are
Yeah.
some very emotional moments that
Here comes the
I
emotional
love.
hurricane. Exact.
Yes, like actual tears mixed with rain, so it's like pretty iconic.
Oh,
I have to
Blade
say.
Runner-esque. I'm gonna turn that into your name. Well, I'm super excited for everybody to check it out. Thank you, Julia and Chris, for your time. Thank you for being here. And everybody who has watched the season so far, I cannot believe we've made it this far. Thank you. Bye.